This is my dad, 3-time British Superbike champion, 7 podiums in MotoGP. He raced in the Marlboro era, the most glamorous, most dangerous period in motorcycle racing history. And he got to the very top of the sport on £14,000. Today, to even attempt that same journey, you'd need close to £1 million. This is how he did it. My dad is Neil Mackenzie. If you follow British motorcycle racing, you'll probably know that name. If you don't, you will by the end of this video. He grew up in a 2-bedroom council house in Scotland in the 60s. No family money, no sponsors, and his dad died when he was 13. He started racing at 19, whilst he was digging holes for a living. In this video, I'm going to take you through the exact numbers, year by year, of what it cost him to reach MotoGP. Because that pathway, the one that took him from a council estate in Scotland to the factory HRC team, no longer exists. The window was open for about 20 years and then it closed. And I'll show you the exact moment the door shut, the moment that made his story the last of its kind. And there's something he told me about his time in MotoGP, something I really wasn't expecting. But let's go right back to the beginning. Before we get into this video is sponsored by Insta360, and I want to tell you why I'm actually using it to help shoot this video. This is the Insta360 X5. I've been using it to capture this story properly, where you'll see riding shots of my dad. The reason it works for a video like this is the invisible selfie stick, because you get these shots that look like a drone, but the reality is it's just a selfie stick attached to the camera. Marc Marquez uses one, which is kind of fitting when you see what this video is about. The link's in the description if you want to check it out. Right, 1981. Scotland. A 19-year-old who digs holes for a living.
So I started motorcycle racing in 1981 on a production road bike, which was a Yamaha RD350 LC. Started racing in Scotland at the Scottish Championship races.
In 1981, Neil Mackenzie was taking home £90 a week digging holes for the electricity board. That's just over £4,500 a year. He'd started going to motorcycle races to help out his friends, Stuart and Alistair Ray. A family already in the sport.
And to be honest, I was more than happy just helping start their bikes, warm their bikes up, getting their bikes when they came in the pit lane at the end of a practice, end of a race. I just loved it. We went all over Scotland to north of England, and I had no intention of racing, but that's what got me involved.
And then one day, standing at the side of the track, something clicked.
I don't know whether it was an epiphany or whatever, but I just thought, I think I could do that. And why I thought that I'll never know, but I was 18, 19 and up for anything, so I just thought I'd have a go, and then ended up buying the road bike that just happened to qualify for a new production series, a 500 Scottish production series, and my friends encouraged me to have a go at racing. It was a minimal cost. They chucked my bike in their van, so I didn't have any transport costs. It was basically entry fees and fuel and any crash damage, so it was very affordable.
He bought a Yamaha RD350 LC for £1,086.
The first season, I guess, I didn't feel like I was going to make a career in racing. I was just enjoying the thrill, enjoying riding the bikes, enjoying finding some new racetracks, but I was also winning, and each time I won, I wanted to win a bit more. And I obviously watched other racing that was going on in the UK, and there was some riders at my level that were actually progressing up to national level, and some even progressing to better careers than that. So I had seen that these guys had started club racing and made their way for whatever reason, whether it was lucky breaks or big sponsors or being talent spotted. So that gave me a bit of inspiration a year or second year in, thinking, well, maybe this could even work for me. So including buying my bike, which was £1,086 at the time, on hire purchase. So I had the bike, and then to go racing, it was maximum £70 to £100 a weekend, because I didn't have any transport costs. It was entry fees, fuel, and so yeah, maybe in a whole season I would spend my wages, which would be £1,500 or maybe £2,000, but also weirdly in Scotland there was prize money, so you would get a little bit back when you won as well. So it was very affordable as on a very normal working wage.
He was 19 years old, earning pocket change digging holes for a living, and he was turning a profit racing motorcycles.
At Knockhill in 1981, if you won both 500 production races, you get £50 each for the normal races, and then there was a race at the end which was a free-for-all with all bikes called the invitation race, and you get £70 for that. So I could take home £170 which is ridiculous. I could actually make a profit club racing.
The total outlay for his first season was about £1,500, but he was winning.
Second year in, I tried to step up a bit. I had a friend, actually a good friend, that was injured and had a bit of a payout. A friend of mine called Craig Feeney, he had a few quid and he could see that I was passionate about racing. He bought me a TZ250 to ride in proper racing classes. That bike was £2,000, which he paid for, but then I had to run it. I also had to get myself a van to transport things around, so there was more upfront costs. Van was maybe 1,500 quid, and then I was paying for all my entries and running costs, which was considerably more, at least triple what I had paid the first year.
The costs were higher, but so was the level he was competing at. And then something happened that changed everything.
I was also picked for the Yamaha Pro-Am series, which was a one-make series sponsored by Yamaha, and it was free for up-and-coming riders. There was 12 pro riders, there was 12 amateurs. The amateurs included me, and the pro riders were established racers. So I was picked as the sole Scottish rider at that time. I guess because I had been making a name for myself in Scotland. But the beauty of the Pro-Am racing was there was massive prize money. If you could win, there was 500 quid all the way down to 10th place prize money. And immediately I was running at the front. It did help that I was racing the same bike the year before, and I knew the bike really well, but straight away I was competing with good guys. It was on TV, and I was virtually paying for racing my normal race bike.
Year 2 total, roughly £3,000 to £4,000. Subsidised almost entirely by winning. By 1983, Craig Feeney got married, had a child and needed the bike back, which was fair enough. But now Neil was at a level where he couldn't compete without serious machinery, and he had no money.
So the next year I knew I needed to get a competitive bike for proper racing classes if I was going to make my name at all. And it was basically myself and my mum and one other sponsor that just committed as much as we could. It was basically putting in a couple of grand each, which again is not a lot of money now, but I borrowed money, my mum borrowed money. We had an electrical company, a plant hire company actually, that helped out with buying a new Armstrong, which I decided that was the only bike that was going to be competitive, and we needed to get it right if we were going to do our thing. So we basically kind of were all in.
£6,000. Neil Mackenzie, a 2-bedroom council semi, and his mum. Running total across 3 years, somewhere around £14,000. And then, 3 races into the 1983 season, the Armstrong factory team called.
Very luckily, 2 or 3 races in, I was picked up with the actual Armstrong official team due to circumstances, their rider getting injured. From that moment on, my racing was free. I wasn't making any money, but I was incredibly lucky that I didn't find out what that season was going to cost. But we were all in, and it was one of these where the chances of making it in racing were pretty slim. My mum and I knew that, but we thought we'll give it a go. If it doesn't work out, then life carries on and we've had good time along the way. There was never an intention to just keep going for no reason, but I believed at that point that I was good enough, and unfortunately I did get a break and things went in the right direction.
He quit his job digging holes and he was a professional motorcycle racer.
The first time I was ever in the GP paddock was actually 1983, the third year of racing, and I went along to Silverstone on a practice day. I wasn't involved in Grand Prix at all, and I had watched, it was actually Freddie Spencer on TV, and I still remember I was absolutely starstruck when I was standing in the pit lane and saw Freddie Spencer get off his bike and walk into the pit garage. It was because I'd only ever seen all that stuff on TV, but the sights and the smell and seeing the bikes and the riders in the flesh, it was, I guess, like anyone that sees their absolute hero for the first time in the flesh, it was definitely was totally starstruck. Didn't get to meet him or anything, but I saw him, and so yeah, I was blown away, as I'm sure any up-and-coming rider would be the first time seeing their heroes.
Neil Mackenzie, still technically a club racer from Scotland, standing there watching his hero walk past, not even able to say hello. Just 3 years later, he signed a contract to be Freddie Spencer's teammate. See, here's the thing about how my dad got from being a Silverstone spectator to a HRC factory rider in 3 years. There was no path, there was no academy, there was no defined route.
Back then, I was earning money, or at least supplementing my race career with the One Make Championship Yamaha Pro-Am series. So if you count that as making money, I was making money then. There was prize money. I was picked up properly in the spring summer of 1983 by Armstrong to ride for free, and they were covering my expenses. So for me that felt, and I also packed in my job then, so for me it felt like that was when I became a professional racer, because I wasn't working. I mean, I was staying in a friend's bedroom, I was racing at a good level in the British Championship, but I wasn't paying for it. So for me at that time, that was riding, racing professionally.
He just kept turning up, kept winning, and kept being noticed. And the British Championship in the mid-80s had something that barely exists anywhere now: an open door.
If you were in the 250 British Championship and you fancied the 250 Grand Prix at Silverstone, you could actually rock up there on the Thursday with your licence, put your name on the standby list, and if by some miracle there was space, you'd actually get to ride in the Grand Prix. If there was going to be a space, that meant if a lot of foreigners didn't show up or someone got injured, and you were on what's called a grading list with the ACU, then you could get to start. My first Grand Prix was like that. I rocked up at Silverstone. I was riding for Armstrong, but we basically put my name down. I never thought for a minute I'd be in a Grand Prix, but I was accepted, and it was like winning the race. It was just amazing. It was so exciting. I was out there, and that was my first Grand Prix. You can't do that now. That's not happening. No matter how much money or whatever bike you've got, or how bold you are, you're not going to show up at Silverstone and get a ride in Moto 3 Plus.
He finished last, but he was on the grid, and people saw him. He got 2 more wildcards that season with more good results, and by the end of the year, HRC were watching.
And it was one of these, just my luck kept going, the momentum kept going. I got another 2 good results. I put my name in the hat really for the future.
1987, Neil Mackenzie's first full season in MotoGP. Honda's factory team, one of the best bikes on the grid, with full factory support. There was testing in Japan, tested in Australia, and a full team around him.
Loved the bike. It was the best bike. I had a great team around me. I won a race in Japan early in the season, Japanese Championship race, and then I qualified pole for the first ever Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka, which was just ridiculous. But at that point I thought, well, this is it. It's just dead easy. Win Japanese Championship race, qualify pole, probably win the race on the next day. It rained, and I was actually third on the last lap and fell off, so it was still an okay day, or not an okay day, but it was, it was just ridiculously fast-tracked all the way to my first Grand Prix.
Let me give you the full picture of what just happened. In 1981, Neil Mackenzie was digging holes in Scotland, taking home £90 a week. Mad. £14,000, 6 years, and a loan that his mum had taken out, and a completely clear path to the top of the sport that has never existed since. But that's only half the story, because I haven't told you what it was actually like when he got there.
When I first arrived in 500 GPs, it was with HRC Honda, and I guess the first thing was that it was just so professional, probably what I expected. I had someone to look after me 24/7, whether it was arriving in Japan, getting to the racetrack, and then when I did arrive at the racetrack, everything was there: bikes, mechanics, the very best of everything. I guess for any rider, getting to MotoGP is the goal, and certainly for me, Honda was the biggest and the best, and I was given that opportunity. So right at that moment, I felt like I had arrived.
In the late 1980s, the 500cc World Championship was one of the most dangerous forms of motorsport on the planet. 2-stroke bikes, no traction control, no ride-by-wire, no electronics. Just raw power, terrible tyres, and whoever was brave enough to tackle them. Rainey, Schwantz, Doohan, Lawson, Gardner. My dad was on that grid.
2 years later, and it was the weirdest situation ever. Honda had a big shake-up. They had signed Mick Doohan and Eddie Lawson, and there basically wasn't any space for me. And I was taken to the airport from Honda HQ quite late one October evening, and basically told at that point I wouldn't be riding for Honda next year. And it wasn't any big boss that told me, it was the guy that took me to the airport, and at the same time he handed me over a nice watch, and it was my retirement present. And he basically said, I remember it, his words, he said, "Sorry Neil-san, but you don't have a job with Honda next year." My Japanese helper, he's called Mr. O'Hara, which was an unusual name for a Japanese person, and he basically dropped me off and I went into the hotel to catch my flight home the next day. I was definitely in shock because I had been told things would carry on. We'd even talked about my salary, but they obviously had a big change around. Sponsors were involved and Eddie Lawson and McDoon were going there. I checked into the hotel, I went to my room, I sat down there, I was probably making myself a cup of tea, and the phone rang, and it was Giacomo Agostini. And what I didn't understand or realise in that world, that everybody talks to everybody else, so he probably knew before me that I was getting sacked. But he had lost his rider, Eddie Lawson, and there was a space available. I didn't know who my teammate would be at that point, but that was basically it. Ago said, "Are you interested to come to talk to me in Switzerland when you get home?" And I said, "Yeah, of course I am." And for me, that was the number one Yamaha team. So that was really how it came about. I went straight to Switzerland, talked to Agostini. I didn't have any manager, but I kind of knew what I was worth. And we shook hands on a deal for the Marlboro Yamaha year.
7 podiums in the most competitive championship in the world, on £14,000 and a loan from his mum.
So the one that stands out the most would be my first podium, because that is just your goal. I was having 5th places and 4th places, but in my first season I finished 3rd in Austria in the Salzburg Ring. Wayne Gardner won the race, Randy Mamola was 2nd, massive hero, childhood hero of mine. So I raced with him for most of the race and ended up 3rd, stood on the podium with him. 2 heroes, 2 amazing riders, so that really stood out. Salzburg Ring is a ridiculously fast circuit, not safe, but you don't see that when you're riding around, so it's really special. My mum had her first trip abroad, she came with some friends, and so to have her there and me standing on the podium was amazing, so very, very special.
But here's what's been sitting with me since we filmed all of this. That pathway is completely gone. When my dad started racing, the junior championships in the UK cost about £1,000 a year. That's achievable. It's a family sacrifice, but it's achievable. You could win prize money and those results would attract a local sponsor. That sponsor would fund the next season and you'd climb and keep climbing. There was a ladder with rungs that you could actually reach, but that ladder doesn't really exist anymore. Today, to be genuinely competitive in junior motorcycle racing at that level, to get yourself noticed, you're looking anywhere between 100 and 250,000 euros for a season's racing. That's not to reach MotoGP, that's just to be on the grid where someone might find you in the junior championships. The prize money model that funded my dad's entire career is more or less gone. The open door Grand Prix wildcard slots that first got him a start have also gone. The ability to rock up at 19 with no sponsors and a borrowed van at the Silverstone Grand Prix is gone. Every rider on the current MotoGP came from some kind of backing. Not necessarily enormous family wealth, but backing from someone. They were supported and funded from a young age. The Neil Mackenzies of today probably couldn't make it past their first season. They run out of money before anyone can find out how good they are. My dad got through the door at exactly the right moment. 10 years earlier and the opportunity might not have been there. 10 years later and he couldn't have funded it himself. He made it in a window.
It's much more competitive, but there is a system in place. If you're a young rider, you basically sign up for the selection event at the MotoGP Red Bull Rookies Cup, and you will get a chance to go and prove yourself. If you've got enough talent, then you'll get into the Red Bull Rookies, and then you can make your way through from there. But it is hugely competitive because there's junior championships all over the world now, hundreds of riders trying to aim for the same thing. But it is possible, and we've seen riders with not a lot of money but a huge amount of talent that have made it. Examples are Pedro Acosta. I've been commentating in the Red Bull Rookies when he's showed up with no money, no prospects of any Grand Prix rides, and he's just made it happen. Jorge Martin's another rider. All these, not all of them, but many of these kids appear in that paddock with nothing, and just their talent shines through.
I spent a lot of time thinking about what my dad's career actually means. Not just as his son, but as someone who's tried to follow the same path in a completely different era. He didn't just get lucky, he made every pound count. He bet on himself because he was immensely talented when no one else would. And when the break came, he was ready.
I don't have any regrets because I totally overachieved in my life as a person from a small village in Scotland. I had ambitions to be a truck driver. I was digging holes before I went racing, so I had no great aspirations to do what I did, but it was a dream that came true, so I don't have any regrets. However, looking back, I trained hard, but I probably could have trained a bit more clever. My first ever Grand Prix for Honda, I fell off on the last lap, and if I had only just looked behind, I would have seen there was no one there, but I felt like I was under pressure, so I fell off for that reason. So little things like that, but overall, I totally overachieved in my life from where I came from, so I can't have any regrets or what ifs really.
And that story matters more now than it ever did. If you want to see more on the real economics of making it in professional motorcycle racing, please subscribe, because this is a subject I'll keep coming back to. The Insta360 X5 I used to document this whole story is linked below, and there's a link in the description if you want to support the Paddock Network, my very own job platform that helps people trying to build a career in motorsport. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.